Okay, so Cameron's got his copy of the book with him. Good morning. We're going to be talking about the art of war a little bit this morning. I've got my copy here. Uh, and like I've said, the link in the description where you can go and purchase a copy is to this copy that Cameron has.
An
Uh,
absolutely gorgeous copy that's got a textured cover. The pages are glossed so they can take a beating. And there is an 80-page forward that discusses everything from ancient battle tactics and why they were applicable, all the way up to how much this work influenced Mao Zedong. So, bravo, sir. You picked a good one.
yeah, and I promise I'm going to try to pick copies of the books for the future installments of the BFM where we do the Brushfire book club, the Bookfire Mind Club rather. Which I'm rebuilding the website. It's the current Brushfire Mind website is a little rudimentary because I'm in the process of the redesign. I mean, it's here it is. It's a very basic uh, WordPress site for now, but that's just well, it was feature rich and beautiful before, but I, I need it to be more. So that's a project that's ongoing, and hopefully by the end of this week I'll have that far enough along at least that there will be um the link the links to the books that are on the Bookfire Mind Club, so you don't have to wait for us to get to the books that we're talking about. You can go ahead and start building your collection up front. Um, and yes, that.
So, in my rereading, I'm currently in chapter 6, and I just thought, well, here we go. Now, an army may be likened to water, for just as flowing water avoids the heights and hastens the lowlands, so an army avoids strength and strikes weakness. 28. And as water shapes its flow in accordance with the ground, so an army manages its victory in accordance with the situation of the enemy. 29. And as water has no constant form, there are in war no constant conditions. 30. Thus, one able to gain the victory by modifying his tactics in accordance with the enemy's situation may be said to be divine. 31. Of the 5 elements, none is always predominant. Of the 4 seasons, none lasts forever. Of the days, some are long and some are short, and the moon waxes and wanes. I haven't read this book in a long time. Chris and I were talking about this. The only thing I could remember is the parable of the concubines at the beginning, and I referred to it as the parable because there's no way, there's no way um, that Sun Tzu executed the emperor's favorite pieces of squeeze and got to keep his head. Like that didn't happen. But the parable holds. And one of the things that I'm really struck by in my reread is how much Sun Tzu talks about winning without even fighting. How the ideal
Yes.
victory as you capture the enemy city without engaging in a single skirmish. No property is destroyed, no lives are lost, um, and it's uh, it's an interesting way to think about winning. Because sure, I mean, if 2 men engage in mortal combat, one will fall to the ground and one will not. But it's actually preferable that it never even gets to that point. That the enemy is so utterly defeated um, that the fighting part of it is not even necessary.
Danielle mentions in the comments that there's something wrong with the link that I sent her via Facebook. So there's a fresh link in the comments section there for you guys, and then I just added it to the description here. Um, So you should be able to get it. You should be able to go and pick it up again. And yeah, the so real quick. Well, I should stop using that particular phrase. So let's talk about the art of war and the book Fire Mind. Um, the book Fire Mind project. This idea of taking a taking a measured approach and planning ahead for the predictable future, acquiring these books that are likely to become targets of the enemy. Frankly, the art of war, this is less likely to be one of those targets than some of the more controversial books that will be on our list. Books like 1984, The Anatomy of Power, Brave New World, The Hydrogen Economy, The Monster from Jekyll Island, Basic Economics. Books like those are much more likely to be targeted by the sinister left. But the art of war, one of the things that he talks about is when you are strong, appear to be weak. When you are weak, appear to be strong. The art of deception as a tactic in war is very much a part of Sun Tzu's activities and advice and wisdom on how to conduct a war which is won without fighting. Right? The war is won or lost before the fight begins. Uh, I'll nerd a little bit on this. There's the card game Magic the Gathering. Um, I don't know how many of you in the current audience are familiar with the game, but Cameron and I have both played a lot when we were younger, and I still play every now and then. When I was at the Language Institute, we would go and play in tournaments every Friday, and we would play in what's called a draft tournament, where everybody gets 3 packs of cards. There's 15 cards in a pack. A deck is 40 cards for a draft tournament. You pass the cards around, and you pick the cards out, and you build the deck right there. Right, so you build a deck of cards. In a game like that, before you sit down to play the card game, you make a deck, and there's a basic set of rules on what doesn't go into a deck. But the thing about deck building in Magic, and there's several other games like that, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, those card games work kind of the same way. You have monsters, you have spells or traps, you have strategic maneuver cards, and you have resources, and you put those together to make the deck that you're going to play from. So you're drawing a card from the deck into your hand, and then you've got your move you can make. There's very much an element of chess to how that game is played. But with a game of chess or checkers, you sit down to a board, and the beginning of the game is always identical. You sit down to the board, and then you play the game. Now, you've done the thinking and the practicing and the strategizing. You know how you're going to begin your approach. But now you're into game theory, where your individual decisions cannot be made based on the move your opponent just made. You have to think ahead. When they talk about thinking ahead several moves, it means understanding the game well enough that when I move a pawn, I know that my opponent, in order to have a successful game, he must respond to the pawn I moved by moving a certain piece. And I know that if he moves that piece and then I move another piece, that if he doesn't make a certain move in response to my move, then he'll lose. And that's the thinking ahead. It's not just planning my next move. It's planning my next move with the expectation of the opposition's probable response to that move, and then planning moves based on the expectation of those responses. In the military, we plan on that with what we call a pace plan, right? And there's a pace plan for everything. Everything from how we're going to conduct the war at large to how we're going to stay in communications with one another. So a pace plan for communications pace is primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. So a pace plan for communications in a convoy, for example, might be we're going to have encrypted comms over a radio. If that radio fails, then we'll go to broadcasting our comms unencrypted on an unsecure radio, and we'll use code words instead of just speaking plainly to protect the communications. If that fails, then we'll switch to something else, and if that fails, so you've got a plan in place, right? So that's your pace plan. Is primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. You can do the same thing for planning your survival tactics at home. My primary plan is we earn money and buy groceries. The alternate plan is we have a backup. We have a backup pantry for emergency supplies. The contingency plan is I go out and hunt, and the emergency plan is I go and raid the other people and take their food, because screw them. But in Magic, what's very interesting in the game of Magic and those card games, when you build that deck, you're doing all of that planning in a very active way before you sit down to play the game. I'm sitting down and asking myself, okay, if I've got all these cards, what kind of decks do I think other people can build, and how can I best prepare to respond to their aggressive maneuvers, and then implement my own offensive tactics. Studying this book will not only give you a great deal of insight into how that battle is won, how the war is won before the battle is fought, and for the purposes of playing chess well or playing Magic the Gathering well, it also informs the way that we understand politics and culture. Now, we know that if Donald Trump comes out and says you should drink water so that you don't die of dehydration, that the obvious response to that is CNN will run a headline about the dihydrogen monoxide content of cancer cells and nuclear reactors.
Boy, you're not kidding. Donald Trump, man, he's got an amazing killer instinct for a guy that was never involved in politics ever. He seems to get it in such a degree that it just blows my mind. And I think part of the reason why I feel like I understand Donald Trump in a very granular way is because I've worked for people like Donald Trump. They can be extremely challenging to work for, but they get results. When I first got into insurance, I did a type of insurance where not only did I sell insurance, but I also ran a debit, which meant I had to go collect payment in the field. So there was a lot of moving parts to keep up with. And I was not very good at it at first because, a lot of moving parts to keep up with. And I had a supervisor who, he would cuss me out. He would set and I'll even honestly say at times he would set unreasonably high expectations for me. There was one time where I made a single error on a piece of paperwork. And this was a correctable error. But he called me into his office and he threw the paperwork at me and told me that this is bullshit and that this is the thing standing in the way of my success. And he told me I had to redo the entire form. He would not accept a corrected piece of paperwork from me. This meant I had to go back to the client with a brand new form, get it notarized all over again. And I live 2 hours away from the office. So he knew he was sending me on an errand that was just going to be a giant pain in my ass. This guy drove me crazy. And then it came time for my annual review with corporate. And this guy blew my mind. He described me in this review as one of the biggest up-and-comers in the office, that I was a team player, that I was working very hard to limit my mistakes, and that he wished he had a few more people like me in the office. He could turn this office into the #1 office in the country if I had more people willing to engage in the level that I was willing to engage on. And man, you want to talk about like all the light bulbs going off. I suddenly understood that this particular manager was results oriented. He didn't care about your feelings. He he didn't care about using nice language or anything like that. What he cared about was at the end of the month, did that office show profit? Did we show growth? Did we improve our standings? Then it was a good month. If we did not, then it was a bad month. And that's that's how Donald Trump is. He is results oriented. So when he says things, and yeah, a lot of it's stream of consciousness. He thinks of something and he says it, and then the Marxist media will use it against him. Like the whole thing, just as an example, disinfecting the inside of your body. Well, the media ran with it and made it sound like he was telling you that you needed to huff bleach or spray Lysol inside your mouth or something like that. But no, it turns out that there's a company that had figured out a way to insert UV light into into a tube if you've been intubated, so you can literally kill the cells from the inside out, and that's what he was referring to. Um, so, and I swear I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring it back around. My father says that Donald Trump is a Sun Tzu master. That he understands intimately, and that's Papa Sheepdog that we're talking about here, that he understands intimately when the correct moment to strike is. That whole thing about agitate your enemy and make him show his weakness, that's what Donald Trump is doing. That's why he says these off the wall things. And when he says things like, maybe we should go take the guns and then give them back later, or maybe we should have a clean DACA deal. He never actually intends to have a clean DACA deal. He never actually intends to endorse red flag laws. No, 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 no. But he understands that he can't show his hand. He's got to appear weak in one way while he's strong in one way, and he's got to appear strong in others. He's constantly got them agitated, and they make mistake after mistake after mistake. Look at these, like, buddy, look at these mayors and governors that are rejecting his help to stop the riots because the help comes from Donald Trump, and they can't give Trump a win, so they're just going to let their cities burn instead. I mean, talk about cut off your nose to spite your face.
Right. I'm glad you brought it back around to this position, to this point. There were several articles on the comparing the art of the deal to the art of war back during the campaign in 2015 and 2016, but here's a new one from Freedom Wire, and I'm gonna read it. It's not a very long article. I'm gonna read it to you. We all know Donald Trump. Donald Trump perfects the art of war. We all know Trump has written a book called The Art of Deal. It was a New York Times bestseller and has been praised the world over for its guidance and insight into the world of big business. This book helped bolster Trump's reputation as a shrewd and savvy businessman while putting a good chunk of money in his pocket, too. Whenever you hear a leftist call Trump an idiot, it's fun to throw the art of the deal at them and watch them squirm and make excuses as to why the book and the man behind it succeeded. When Trump retires from politics in another 5 years, he may need to write another book. After all, he has rewritten so many of the unwritten rules of politics. Trump's employed a fascinating and entertaining style of politics. It's part comedy, part brutal honesty, with a healthy dash of rebellion thrown in. Succeeded where many would fail, and he's done so doing it his way and disregarding many of the long-standing and unwritten ceremonies, rules, and policies that have been a part of the American political fabric for over 2 centuries. He does it his way. Trump does not bow to pomp and circumstance, nor does he follow the decorum that has dictated the presidency. If you're looking for a stoic and politically correct commander-in-chief, you've got the wrong guy. He's brash, brutal, and at times can come off like a bully. I'm good with it. Um, but it's been his style since the beginning of his career in business, and it's exactly what the American people wanted. One of the places where Trump excels, and at the same time riles up the left, so it's a double win, is in his doling out of nicknames. Lower Jeb, Crooked Hillary Clinton, Crazy Bernie Sanders, Pencil Neck Adam Schiff, Sleepy Joe Biden. He's got a gift for picking names that stick to his political opponents. With the current crop of DNC hopefuls, he's handed out some doozies, and the truth is, if you don't get a nickname, you don't register on his radar. And let me caveat that, if you don't get a nickname, you're not politically viable. If Trump doesn't think you rate a derogatory nickname, it's because you don't exist as a political threat in the current political world. You may as well not exist. Of the current frontrunners, nobody has gotten as much guff recently as Mini Mike Bloomberg. And boy, did that sink his short little ass. And, you know, the Mini Mike thing, it actually, there's a little more article, I'll get back to it in a minute. The whole Mini Mike thing, there was actually a devastating extra layer to that. Trump might as well have called him Mini Me, because one of the big criticisms of Bloomberg by the left was that he's basically just Donald Trump, but more evil. And then the correct analysis on that take is this. You know what makes Mike Bloomberg more evil than Donald Trump is he has a political record of doing all of the things that a Democrat wants a Democrat to do. And those are the things that they hated him for. Like, you know, the thing on housing is, well, he's a racist. He gave all these houses to black people. Well, it's just because he thinks they can't get them themselves. Yeah, that's right.
The soft bigotry of low expectations.
The Democrat wants to steal your money and give it to black people because they believe that black people aren't competent human beings, that they're not capable of achieving things without those things being achieved for them at gunpoint. That's the modern Democrat in a nutshell. And you can say the same thing about every other intersectional identity group. If you are other than a straight white male, the Democrat Party believes that you're incapable of achieving anything without help, and that those achievements should be given to you at someone else's expense and at gunpoint. And please believe, they don't want you to have anything good unless it comes by hurting someone else. If it's not taken by force at someone else's expense and causing them pain, they don't want you to have good things. So, Trump on the hunt. For some reason, Bloomberg has landed at Trump sites and has been the recipient of some of Trump's most savage tweets. Tweets like, Mini Mike is 5'4", massive dead energy who does not want to be on the debate stage with these professional politicians. No boxes, please. He hates Crazy Bernie and will, with enough money, possibly stop him. Bernie's people will go nuts. That tweet is not just biting and absolutely devastating to old Mini Mike, but where's the lie? I mean, don't get it twisted. These are Bernie's people that are burning your cities. And whether Trump's base likes the nicknaming or not, the fact that he's attacking Mini Mike this far out from the actual DNC convention could mean that he actually sees Bloomberg as a threat. And that's true. That's a very fair analysis. Bloomberg was a legitimate threat because he had the money to go forward.
Yeah, and he managed to win, like, what was it, Puerto Rico or Samoa Islands or something.
But let's be fair. Let's be real. If it hadn't been for tweets like this from the Donald, Bloomberg might have actually gone all the way. Bloomberg didn't lose. Bloomberg was beaten.
Well, he might come back around because, I mean, Joe Biden is not going to accept the nomination in person. I wonder why that is. They're not going to sit him in front of a teleprompter so he can't go off script and nibble on his wife's fingers on stage.
God. Okay, so I still maintain that there probably won't be debates. Um, they're the Dems are they're gonna do everything they can to keep Biden from getting on a stage with Trump. They're terrified of that outcome. But good God, would I pay money to see the two of them get on stage and hear Donald Trump cut Biden off mid sentence and say, "Listen here, finger biter."
Folks, you know the thing. And hey, look, man, look, it's the thing. It's Corn Pop, and he was a bad dude.
Oh God, Joel starts stumbling and mumbling and stuttering on stage, and Trump will just say, "Look, Joe, it's fine. They know the thing."
If I were advising the Trump campaign, the number one thing that I would be telling Trump to hammer on is debates. And they've already done this somewhat. Are you tracking that last week Trump requested adding a fourth debate to the schedule? That's
well, okay, so I think we're kind of off the art of war, but we're still talking about tactics at this point. So with the debates thing, it started early. For the last several weeks, all the mainstream media outlets, all the pro-Biden Democrat propaganda wing groups have been going on and on about how we shouldn't even there shouldn't be debates because Donald Trump's a liar and you can't debate with somebody who's just a liar. Like, I don't know. I mean, Donald Trump debated with Hillary Clinton, so clearly it can be done. But they've started running their mouths about, well, you can't trust Trump and he'll rig the debate somehow. I'm like, well, okay, I can see where you might suspect that Donald Trump might rig the debate since Fox News hired Donna Brazile, but I mean, what else you got? So they've been doing two things at the same time. They've been pushing to get rid of the debates, and they've been trying to gaslight you and make you think that it's been the Republicans trying to get rid of the debates. Guys, we're confident. We like our guy. We think he can win.
Yeah, I remember how the debates went last time. He smashed Hillary. The one in particular where he walked around behind her and she just couldn't focus on what she was saying. I mean, woo-hoo-hoo-hoo,
oh yeah, and you know that may have been the thing that lost it for her, because after that there was all this stuff where she said that he made her feel uncomfortable, that because he was intimidating and he was using his maleness and his male privilege and he being a bully and intimidating me and I'm like, and you think that at a time when our greatest military concerns, because remember we're talking 2016, this is before Mad Dog Mattis and Donnie Two Scoops Trump Moabbed and fucking ended ISIS, right? So we're still talking about the greatest threat in our political world at the time was the military threat posed by Islamo-fascist extremists who are very much patriarchy, male dominating characters, that the thing we want to send to deal with men who think that women aren't humans, aren't people, and deserve no respect is a woman who's visibly and vocally afraid of men.
I know, right?
That's your plan?
Yeah,
hey, the enemy bought knife-proof vests, so we're going to leave all the guns at home. No! Read a book, son.
But yeah, that's what I I'd just be all over it. Don't drop the tweet about the debates every day. In fact, tweet the most offensive things you possibly can about the debates every day. Force the news media to cover it. And in employing the art of war, what they'll do is they'll try and make excuses for why the debates can't happen, for why these tweets are inappropriate, they're mean, they're this, they're that. But you can push them and push them and push them, and at some point in time, you can anticipate the counter move, eventually including language along the lines of that this is somehow unfair to Joe Biden. And I think it'll be really similar to that one debate in 2016 where he walked around behind Hillary and she couldn't find her place. She couldn't speak. It clearly unsettled her. And it won't matter if they lie. It won't matter, whatever the counter story they tell is. Just putting the emphasis on it. There's going to be a whole lot of middle America that goes, whoa, wait a minute. They're not going to debate? And eventually the counter offer will be, well, we'll do a digital debate. Nope. It is in-person roundtable debates or it's nothing. Also, with all this early mail-in voting, and this is the other angle and Donald Trump has been smart enough to go ahead and attack this angle. With all this early...
And I hate to interrupt this point, and I want you to make this point, but I do want to give you a little pushback on Donald Trump has been smart enough. The fact of the matter is, I know what you're about to talk about, but the fact of the matter is they dropped the ball on this one. They got smart enough to try and fix the problem, but they dropped the ball on this. They did not deal with it early enough, and now it's going to be a real problem.
Okay, fair enough. But with all these people already casting their votes, you can make a legitimate point about the ethics. So why are these people voting? They haven't even seen the two candidates debate. How can you possibly know which of the two is the stronger choice when you have not seen them go head-to-head with one another?
Right. And so let me digress a little bit to the comments section for a minute. I know you can't see the comments while you're on your phone like that. Steve mentions the resurgence of Musashi's Book of Five Rings was driven by the same mindset that revived Sun Tzu by applying it to business. Maybe it loses purity that way, but it does seem to be effective. It doesn't lose purity that way, Steve, and I would also point out, interestingly, it was the study of the Book of the Five Rings and the study of the art of war that led the designers in the original Star Trek series to design a set where you've got a captain's chair in the center where the captain sits and is surrounded by his science officers and navigators and helmsmen and commands the bridge from there. That is not how business is actually or was actually done in the U.S. Navy prior to that. And then the Navy, a Navy admiral, watched Star Trek and said, "Holy shit, why haven't we been doing this for 300 years? And somebody else said, "Well, because, sir, we were only founded in 1776. Yeah, but you know the thing. But I want a chair in the middle of my submarine. And now there's a chair in the middle of the submarine. And on battleship, that's how we manage our naval vessels now. And there's a whole thing about why in all science fiction, when you're dealing with large fleets and large vessels, they all have a naval command structure instead of an army command structure, because that's what the Navy does. The Navy doesn't drive little boats. A Navy captain commands a city that happens to float.
And have guns that fire 50-pound shells if you piss him off.
I have never personally gotten to put my thumbs on the butterfly for a quad deuce. But I have fired a maw deuce with these thumbs, and you know what rigor mortis is. There's a similar thing that's like an erection that happens when put your thumbs on that butterfly for the first time. It's amazing. Naval ships have guns on them. It is a... Oh, God. Let me see if I can find a picture of it real quick. The quad deuce. It's 4 maw deuces, which is the 50 caliber machine gun, mounted so that they fire in tandem, or so that they fire in sequence, mounted together. Oh, damn it! I'm seeing every other. Oh, here's one. Here we go. Yes, yes, there it is. This thing. It's 4 maw deuces, firing 50 caliber rounds. It's Anyway, so I digressed to the comments for a minute. There's a couple things I want to deal with there. Joe Macareno is watching. Good to see you this morning, brother. And since Joe's watching, and I know that a couple of the other guys that this really matters to will be watching soon, and hopefully, Sergeant Major, if you catch this show, you'll catch the heads up. I had a brief conversation with one of my old drill sergeants from, we'll say, from one of the schools. We might talk a little more detail about that. But Drill Sergeant Sunnydale Hyde, who is just, an American hero. He just retired a couple days ago. He finally retired from the U.S. Army. And I have already gotten him to agree. We're going to do a live show with Drill Sergeant Hyde sometime in the not too distant future. I've got a couple of logistics and scheduling concerns to work out there, Cameron. I would like you to join us for that, but it's probably going to end up being me and Drill Sergeant Hyde, and I'm going to try to get my buddy Matt Parks and Mario Romano. Mario and I were battle buddies with Drill Sergeant Hyde as one of our drill sergeants for a long time. And there are some stories there that are, frankly, solid comedy gold. And Joe, reach out. I know you were a big fan of Drill Sergeant Hyde too. If you would like to join us on that live stream, we'd be more than happy to have you. I know that could be a little touchy, for various reasons that I won't mention here. But if you think you can do it, or if there's a show format that we can put together that makes it conducive to you being able to join us for that show, we can talk about that. To be clear, I don't intend for that show to be about politics. I intend for that show to be about some old soldiers talking about old soldiering. And we'll probably tell some stories about Mario shitting himself in formation.
So we're coming up on time, buddy. I have to go vote, and I am going to end up voting for Marjorie Green, and mostly reading The Art of War has reinforced my decision to vote for her. There's some scandal that she basically bought a house out here so that she could run out here and win out here. She did live in Fulton County, and you're just not going to have a successful career as a Republican in Fulton County. You're just not.
No.
However, her messaging has been correct. She directly attacks Ilhan Omar and Nancy Pelosi and describes them as socialist, and even has this thing, it's a tagline in some of her ads. It says, sometimes the only way to deal with a woman is by sending another woman. Okay, you know what? Fine. As long as you'll toe the line, you're gonna play the part of being this conservative she-bear, kind of Sarah Palin acolyte. Oh, okay, I'll give you a shot. And if you suck, I'll vote for somebody else in 2 years.
Yep. All right. Well, brother, it's been a good one. Oh, okay. I know you got to get going. I want to talk about this for a minute, though. Do you have a few minutes to hang out?
Just a few.
Okay. This is a scam alert situation. I have gone through this with a black magic marker to redact. There wasn't a whole lot to redact. It's pretty generic piece of paperwork. But I want y'all to take a look at this. This is a check, scare quotes, and it says COVID-19 financial relief benefits, time-sensitive document, open immediately, and it says it's from the administrative offices, right? Just very generically, administrative offices, 2020, Conyers, Georgia. And then right here, this is actually, I'll give them credit for this. This is pretty clever. There's a disclaimer right here. I'm going to read it to you, Cameron. It says, warning, $2,000 fine, 5 years imprisonment, or both for any person interfering or obstructing with delivery of this letter, U.S. Mail 18 Section 1702 U.S. Code. They print a reference code, $2,000 fine, 5 years imprisonment. I'll give them credit. That does make it look very official that there's an actual direct reference to U.S. code. But what they're referencing here is there's a $2,000 fine or 5 years imprisonment or both for the obstruction of the delivery of mail generally. That applies to if I send you a birthday card and somebody steals it if somebody steals it from your mailbox or obstructs the letter carrier from delivering it, that's the same law, right? So that's a clever little trick there. And I guess I've already given away the game. This is a scam. They sent me what appears to be a check for $17,500, right? Listed as COVID-19 financial relief. And make no mistake, this is a check. I could sign the back of this, take it to the bank, and hand it to them. But it's not a check. Well, I mean, it is a check. I take this to the bank. They're going to give me this money in cash. But once I've signed it, I'll be paying these amounts, right? And just to be clear, the total, if you were to actually sign this check and take it to the bank and get your $17,500, if you pay the minimums, you will pay for 22 years, and you will pay $39,723 in interest above and beyond the $17,500 that you would have to pay back. $17,000 check, $40,000 in interest over 22 years. Y'all, pay attention to these. If somebody mails you a check that you didn't do work for, you need to get real suspicious all of a sudden. And let me show you what I do with mine. I tear them in half. I tear them in half again. And then as soon as the show's over, I'm going to walk out on my back porch and smoke a cigarette, and I'm going to burn this with a MAP gas torch. Don't play around with this, because there ain't a whole lot of ID verification involved in this one. If I was to take this out of your mailbox and risk incurring that $2,000 fine or 5 years in prison, but managing not to get caught and sign my own name to it, you would owe the money. And the law would chase you down for that money. And having experienced identity theft in the past, let me tell you something. It's on you. The FBI, the police, I called the sheriff's department, I called the FBI. I spoke to people at the FBI with whom I have a prior professional relationship. And I came to them with more evidence than an average civilian, not more evidence than an average civilian is going to think to bring to them, more evidence than an average civilian is legally capable of acquiring. And they were still unable to offer me any assistance in trying to combat the identity thieves. I ended up having to go after those thieves. I stole about $6,000 back from them, and I had my lawyer send them a letter to cease and desist, and that put a stop to it. But until I started robbing my identity thieves, the law had no interest in helping me recover my identity or the money that was stolen from me. Actually, that paid for most of the setup for the studio originally before I started.
All
It was
right,
about
buddy.
6 years ago.
I know the exact
I know
incident you're talking about.
you're up against it. Yeah, the Latvian money launderers.
Woo.
I've had an interesting life. We'll see you guys tomorrow for WTF CNN. I don't know what it's going to be tomorrow, but I guarantee you CNN's going to shit the bed before the sun comes up. Y'all be safe out there, and we'll see you tomorrow.